Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of BibleBox. I'm Miss Alexis. Today we're going to be talking about a miracle that Jesus performed. Now, what is a miracle, you might ask? A miracle is something that seems impossible, but is able to be done through the power of God. For today's reading, we're going to be using the Spark Story Bible. If you'd like to have your own copy of the Bible to follow along, just click the link in the description box below. Let's get started. Walking on water. The disciples were just waking up on their boat. They had been out on the water all night. Stretch. It was so early, the sun wasn't even up yet. Andrew rubbed his eyes and looked into the fog. "Hey," he whispered, "do you see what I see?" "Oh, it's a ghost!" James cried out in fear. The disciples were shaking in their sandals. They were terrified. Through the fog, they could see the outline of a person walking on the water. It was Jesus. "Don't be afraid. It's just me," Jesus said. He waved a friendly hello. "If it's really you, Jesus, tell me to walk on the water," Peter said bravely. "Okay," Jesus shrugged. "Come on out, Peter. The water is fine." Gulp. Peter swallowed hard. He placed one foot onto the water. Plop. It didn't go under. He tried the other foot. Plop. He was standing. He kept his eyes glued on Jesus as he took a few careful steps. He walked faster and faster. Splish, splash. Only his feet were getting wet. Jesus smiled at him. Peter felt the wind blowing on his face. He took his eyes off of Jesus and looked up at the dark clouds. He felt afraid. Uh-oh, his ankles were wet. Uh-oh, his knees were wet. Uh-oh, Peter was sinking. "Help me, Jesus, save me," he yelled. Jesus reached out his hand and pulled Peter out of the sea. "Why did you stop looking at me?" Jesus asked, holding tightly to his friend. "Don't you trust me?" The wind stopped. They climbed into the boat full of cheering disciples. "Hooray! This proves it," they said. "You really are the Son of God." From that day on, the disciples were excited to tell everyone that they met about the power of Jesus. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Walking on water is something that we can't normally do, but Jesus was able to do it because he was the Son of God and had God's power. In today's craft, we're going to be doing a fun little project about Jesus' walking on water. Let's head on over to the craft table and get started. Welcome back to the craft table, friends. As always, make sure that your work surface has something protective on it and that you're wearing protective clothing as well, like me in this apron, or wearing clothes that you won't mind if they get a little dirty. Today is a really messy project, so if you need to take a break and wash your hands every now and again, that's just fine. Simply press the pause button and I'll be here when you get back. Let's get crafting. Welcome to the craft for February 28th. Inside your envelope, you'll find the following supplies. The markers that we saved from a prior craft, 1 paintbrush, 2 little wooden people, a baggie of cornstarch, a bottle of acrylic gloss sealant, and this Save for Later card. Remember, friends, when you see a Save for Later card, make sure you stick this material into the folder for this date. We'll use it in another craft later. You're also going to need to grab a paper cup, or if you don't have a paper cup, a small Tupperware container will work just fine. We're going to be doing a craft today using Newtonian fluid. Now, Newtonian fluid is a special mixture of cornstarch and water that acts like a liquid in some circumstances and a solid in another circumstance. We're going to do this to kind of retell the story of Jesus' walking on water. To start out, we're going to color in our Jesus and our disciple using our markers. You can use all of the markers we used from the previous craft, and if you want to, you can supplement with your own markers too. I'm going to start out with my Jesus. Now, there's no pattern for this, so you can make them look however you want. I think I'll make my Jesus wear a blue tunic. These will be his hands and arms. Maybe a brown belt. What do you think? I imagine it would have been pretty scary to be one of the disciples on that ship. The waves were so big and so high. Have you ever been out on the ocean? Maybe you went to the beach and swam in the waves. Did the waves ever get too high? Or did you like to jump in the waves? I wonder what it would have been like to have been one of the disciples on the ship when they saw Jesus walking across the water to meet them. I imagine that would be a pretty interesting sight. Would you have been scared? Maybe you'd been excited. It's hard to say. do my Jesus's face. My Jesus is definitely going to be smiling. Maybe some brown hair? What do you think? What color hair does your Jesus have? Jesus is just about done here. I'm going to do a little bit of outlining just so that I can see where his arms are. And there we go. On to my disciple. I think my disciple will be in green and maybe some orange. Give him a brown belt too. What color did you decide to make your disciple? I think for my disciple's face, I'm going to make him look pretty shocked. Remember, he looked away from Jesus and ended up starting sinking in the water. Oh no! Heavens! No! Don't worry, I'm here to save you. Once you're happy with how your little characters look, it's time to apply some sealant to make sure that they're waterproof when we put them into our Newtonian fluid. Take your acrylic gloss sealant and shake well. Remove the cap gently and set aside. Using your paintbrush, dip into the acrylic sealant so that your paintbrush is covered, and then gently brush over the top of your character. Take your time and go slow. You may want to have a little piece of cloth handy in case things get a little messy on your fingers. This acrylic sealant will help seal the colors into your wood and make sure that when we put them into our fluid, which is water-based, that you don't lose the color off of your character. notice that my sealant is pretty clear, but may look a little bit white or milky. That is okay. That will eventually dry completely clear, so if it looks a little bit milky, don't worry about it. Try not to go over a spot more than once. If you go over more than once, your marker might smear a little bit. If it does, that's okay. This is just a fun craft. We're not looking to be perfect. We're just looking to have a good time. To make sure my whole guy is covered. The only part I don't have to worry about is the very, very bottom. But for the rest of it, I want to make sure that he's totally sealed. You'll notice I'm holding it only with 2 fingers until I'm finally ready to put the finishing touches on the head. This cuts down on the mess. You know, it must have taken a lot of courage to walk out there with Jesus onto that stormy water. Do you think you would have had enough courage to try it? Nice job sealing up those pieces. Go ahead and close up your acrylic gloss sealant and go wash out your brush. We're going to let both of our characters dry just for a little bit longer while we set up the next part of the craft. For this next part, you're going to need your bag of cornstarch, the cup, and eventually some water. Go ahead and take the cornstarch bag out. Carefully empty the contents into your cup. Now, this can get a little messy, so make sure that you've got some paper towels handy just in case things get a little bit out of control. Woof! That's a lot of cornstarch dust. level out your cup by tapping a couple of times. Take a look at the side of your cup. This is how much we've got it filled up with cornstarch. We're going to add half as much water into our cup and then mix it all together. So if this is how much I have in my cup, and I can mark it with a black marker so you can see, that's how much cornstarch I have in my cup. So I'm going to want to put in about that much water. That's approximately half of how much cornstarch we have. To make a Newtonian fluid, you need 2 times cornstarch to 1 times water. Here we go. See all the little bubbles in there? It's releasing all of the extra air. We're going to help it out by using the opposite end of our paintbrush and stirring well. You might have to break it up a little bit. We're going to need to dissolve all of that cornstarch down into the water. My cornstarch is really starting to get mixed all in there, but I'm going to need to be a little bit more hands-on with my mixing. So I'm going to swap this into a different container. Feel free to do the same. I love messy hands-on crafts. How about you? Now you might have to play around with it a little bit until you can get that Newtonian fluid effect just right. You'll know that it's done because if you take your fingers and pound down on the water, it's gonna feel like a solid object. See? Hardly any wetness on my fingers at all. That's because of the special property of Newtonian fluids. Now we're going to use this to kind of help demonstrate our little story about Jesus walking on water. Your little characters should be pretty much dry now, so you can go ahead and pick them up to use them. One day the disciples were out in the water and they saw through the mist someone walking on the water towards them. Who was it? It was Jesus. Jesus was walking on the top of the water. The disciples were amazed. Peter said, "Jesus, I'll come out into the boat and walk on the water too." He started to get out on the boat. Plop, 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 plop. Imagine his surprise when he was walking on the top of the water. All of a sudden, however, Peter looked up and he saw all of the clouds in the sky and the big giant waves, and he took his eyes off of Jesus. He stopped moving and all of a sudden started to sink into the water. "Help, help!" he said. Jesus reached in and took him back out of the water. "Why did you take your eyes off of me?" he said. "Keep your eyes on me, and I will keep you safe." Boink, 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 boink. The disciples went back into the boat and sailed away peacefully and calmly. Newtonian fluids are pretty fun to work with. They feel like they're a liquid when you gently, gently brush up against them. But if you pound, it feels like a solid object. We hope you had fun with this scientific experiment in an interactive way to retell the story of Jesus walking on water. Have fun with your Newtonian fluid, friends, and we hope you enjoyed today's craft. Bye! Way to go on that craft, friends. I hope you had a good time with it. You know, Peter must have had a lot of faith in God to step out onto those choppy waves and walk towards Jesus. We as Christians should also work to have that much faith in Jesus that even when things get a little choppy in our lives, we can still get out of our comfort zones, out of our boats to speak, and get on the water. Chapel Hill Kids has a great song called Walk on Water, and there's some fun hand motions and dance moves that we can do while we listen and watch the video. Hope you guys have fun with it. Here we go.
I'm closer to you, but I feel like I'm so far away. 'Cause I let my fear get in front of my faith. I'm back and forth like a wave in the wind. But I hear your voice and it's pulling me in. It's pulling me in. I wanna walk on water, take the leap, and step out knowing you will let me sink. I wanna trust you deeper, live like believing that you are everything you say you are. 'Cause you're everything you say you are. Everything you say you are.
I prayed for your proof and I've asked you to give me a sign. But you already did and you traded your life for mine.
You called my name through the rain and the wind. I hear your voice and it's pulling me in. You're pulling me in. I wanna walk on water, take the leap, and step out knowing you won't let me sink. I wanna trust you deeper, live like believing that you are everything you say you are. 'Cause you're everything you say you are. Everything you say you are. You're the start and the ending. You're the reason for living. You're the beat in every heart. You're everything you say you are.
I wanna walk on water, take the leap, step out knowing you won't let me sink. Trust you deeper, keep believing that you are.
I wanna walk on water, take the leap, and step out knowing you won't let me sink. I wanna trust you deeper, live like believing that you are everything you say you are. 'Cause it's everything you say you are. You're the everything you say you are. You're the beat in every heart. You're everything you say you are.
Thanks for joining us again for Bible Box today, friends. Before we go, let's close with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, sometimes in the dark parts of our lives, in the night when we're out in a stormy sea, it's hard to see you. Please give us the faith to keep our eyes on you, not pay attention to the chaos in the world. That way we too can do miraculous things like walking on water. Amen. All right, friends, stay safe and we'll catch you next week for another episode of BibleBox. Until then, bye!